Introducing Billboard Pal, the mobile billboard. With your Billboard Pal, you can advertise anywhere, anytime. Just find your target audience and make unlimited connections. Billboard Pal makes advertising fun and affordable. Stand out from the crowd. Your future customers are ready to meet you.
Content over everything.
Had enough.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest to you, brother, that you get yourself a Bible app. You can download it for free on a smartphone. So you don't need to spend lots of money. It's really simple. Just download it onto your phone. Yeah? And a basic Bible plan, a basic Bible reading is read a psalm, because these are prayers, and say them like prayers. And then read a chapter of one of the Gospels. And then another time, read a psalm and read a chapter of one of the letters of the apostles. That's a basic reading plan. Start to learn about this faith, because this faith is your heritage. This faith is your inheritance. The mantle of your forefathers was to hand down to you this noble truth. And we have had it stolen from us by a group of establishment figures who, because they wanted to be free to live their immoral lives, sought to strip us of any knowledge of our history as a people or any knowledge of our own culture. So if I asked you what is Whit Sunday about, would you be able to tell me? Don't worry, don't be embarrassed. Would you be able to say?
I would probably, in about an hour, it would tweak.
Yeah.
But because,
there was a time when this knowledge of our own culture used to trip off the tongue. But we have undergone a cultural amnesia in the UK because our own culture has been taken from us. And we only have the loosest connections to our once noble past.
Because as society has gone on and we've come through the decades, it's like Christianity is sort of, there's been a vacuum where the churches around the whole of England, there's not much attendance as there was, say, in the 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Attendances are dropping.
I am not encouraging you to join the established, weak, effeminate Church of England with its cassocks and its kowtowing to the liberal establishment. The Archbishop is a prisoner of the establishment. What I'm calling you to embrace is the faith of your ancestors. To see what Christianity looked like properly, we have to look actually back centuries. We have to look back beyond the Enlightenment and around the Enlightenment time to see that the Christian faith was the civilizing force in Europe.
Of course.
And we have to take those truths whilst accepting that we no longer live in a Christian world, and we have to reinterpret them for our day today. A muscular faith that can stand up for itself against all of the enemies of the church. And that includes the liberal establishment, the liberal media, and all of those groups that oppose the church, that seek to sideline the church, that seek to make the church humbled and humiliated so that it doesn't speak its truth.
Because obviously it goes against their interests.
It does go against their interests. But they have got us all by the balls, basically, because they've got us to buy into their hedonistic culture so much that many of us are frightened to allow the Christian faith to transform us. If you allow the love of God to enter your heart, it will transform you, it will transform your relationships, it will transform your life.
It's a very, very positive message, and I understand it. I have many of my friends, their parents are Christian. They say they believe in God, but they don't actually practice Christianity. They just say, yeah, I believe in God, and it's like, as you should ask me that question, you could ask when, which day, and I'd probably remember in an hour. So there are many people out there that actually say they believe in God, but they don't actually practice.
Yes. I mean, the truth be told, I come from a white working class family. So I feel that I can, if I want, barrage and disparage the white working classes, because that is my community. Yeah, I'm not attacking another community, I'm criticising my own. Now, the white working classes, when they get their census form, will tick the Christian box.
Of course.
And then if you ask them, what values do you live by? They'll say, oh, I live by, if you press them on religious topics, they'll say things like, well, I follow Christian values. But the reality is,
they don't know them.
They don't know them. They don't know them at all. So they're claiming this moniker of Christian and of a Christian heritage without any understanding of what that means. Because if I said to you that to be a Christian meant that you stopped being English, or to be a Christian meant that you joined a community of faith that conquered the Roman Empire, that defeated our ancestors, the Jutes, the Angles and the Saxons that invaded the Roman Empire, that defeated the Nordic pagan Vikings, that stood against three attempts by the Islamic Caliphate to conquer Europe and defeated them all, that stood against the Nazis, that stood against the communists and outlived them. I tell you the truth, when the United Kingdom is a footnote in history, the church will still be here. When the liberal experiment of liberal progressive thought has collapsed in on itself and destroyed Western civilization, the church will still be here. We have outlived the caliphates. They've come and gone. Muhammad's experiment failed. The church is still here. When you become a Christian, and I invite you to do so, I invite you to get your Bible app, download it, start reading it, right? And embrace that Christian faith that is your heritage as an Englishman. You know, Alfred, do you know who Alfred the Great is?
Yes.
Who is he?
He's King of England.
King of England. And why? Do you know he's the only king to receive the term great? There's no other king of England that's ever had this appellation given to him. And what made him great was that he founded his kingdom on Christian teaching.
Christian values.
And Christian values. And from that day forth, the English followed the way of the Christians. Yeah? And it turned us from a bunch of barbarians to a civilization that became the envy of the world. But now look at us. Look at how far we as English people have fallen. Our children are growing up in broken homes without mother or father. Our menfolk giving themselves over to drug addictions and to the abuse of alcohol. We entertain ourselves with trinkets and games, whilst our communities are falling apart and our society is being taken over by a liberal establishment.
Look how many single mothers there are. Where their children become a ward of the state.
Yeah.
On benefits.
Because English men have failed to care for English women.
That's very true.
Look at what happened in Rotherham to those poor girls.
Come from broken
There is
homes.
plenty of blame to go around. We're quite comfortable blaming the Islamic grooming gangs, and rightly so, because what they did is horrific. We're quite comfortable blaming the police, because the police deliberately ignored the crimes because of a political ideology that does not want to describe the world as it is, but instead wants to describe the world as they want it to look.
I mean, has anyone ever asked the question, these children that come from these broken homes, where's the father?
Exactly.
Where's the love?
You beat me to it. What we need to do as an English community is to look at ourselves and say, why were those children so vulnerable to begin with? Where were their fathers? Shame on all their fathers that had these children and then abandoned them to be raped. Where were those fathers protecting their mothers? This is the problem that atheism has led amongst the English.
Can I just say something? During the war, a lot of children lost their dads in the war.
Absolutely.
They didn't go to parks, right?
But this is a different
You
thing.
didn't have Islamic paedophiles grooming people, which you have now. This is what's got out of hand. You're always going to get broken homes. Always.
But that, sister, unfortunately, this argument doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because we're not talking about after a war. Those fathers of those children that were raped in Rotherham are alive today. And they allowed their children to be vulnerable. Because, no, they did allow. Because the English, due to abandoning the Christian faith, have lost that concept of personal responsibility, of self-discipline.
So how does being a Christian serve in those?
What, sorry?
How does being a Christian serve in?
Well, let me give you an example. We live in a culture that has given itself over to the abuse of alcohol. I'm white working class, so I know this, I've lived it, I've experienced it. So I'm not some middle class toff looking down on the white working classes. I come from a council estate. And I know the amount of abuse of drugs and alcohol that goes off in council estates. Christianity, allow me, yes it does. Because the Christian faith, when we put God first in our lives, not our own entertainment, then it restricts what we do because of our love for God.
So why does your God let that?
Well, allow me to answer your first question and then I'll deal with your second. So, because we love God, set limits on our lives because you seek to please those that you love. Like, you know from your own experience, when you love your mother or your brother or your sister, even though sometimes you get it wrong, like we do as Christians, you try to do that which makes them happy. And so it is with God. We love God and so we try to do that which makes God happy. This is how it changes us. This is how it makes us different. Yeah? Now, in terms of the question about what happened, why did God not intervene to stop these rapes going on? Well, this is the classic question about suffering. God allows suffering in the world because he wants us to be moral beings. And moral beings can only be moral beings if they are able to make free moral choices.
I think what these people are trying to say is, why didn't God come down and intervene personally?
Yeah.
But we all know that's not possible. Yeah. What you're trying to put across is that the reason why God didn't intervene because the people never had God in their hearts.
Yes. And what I'm also trying to say
I think
is
he's trying to tell you that you can't have objective morals without God.
I agree.
I don't agree.
Right. We'll come to that. So what I'm also trying to say is that there is a hubris and a pride amongst our community. A hubris and a pride that doesn't want to face up to the fact that we are actually part of our own problem. Our apathy is not by accident. The fact that the vast majority of our own community have no care for what's happening in the political world and just think it's all a load of bollocks, they're all the same politicians, I'm not fucking voting. I come from a working class community. I know the kind of things that we say to ourselves. That kind of rubbish comes from a fact that we are so filled with hubris and pride that we think that we don't have anything to sort out amongst ourselves, and we do.
You could also go back to saying the core of the problem is the education system in this country.
Absolutely.
That is a core problem.
Yes.
There's no values anymore. It's the education standards in this country are quite poor unless you can afford private school.
Moral relativism, which is the philosophy of the liberal establishment, is now being taught in our schools. And we have surrendered our children and their minds to liberal, progressive indoctrination.
I've seen it.
And until we stop cooperating with the state, establish private schools. Yeah? Send your children to Christian schools. Yeah? Howdy. Send your children to Christian schools. Demand that those Christian schools practice the Christian faith and teaching, and not follow that multicultural rubbish that has so failed our society. And I'm saying that because the church has a model of multiculturalism that works, the liberal multiculturalism doesn't work. If you go to any church, any Sunday, you're more than likely to see a group of people of different ethnicities and tribes worshipping God together. We Christians have practiced multiculturalism for 2,000 years. I don't need to take a lecture on multiculturalism from a liberal.
No.
Because a liberal's multiculturalism failed. Society fails when it follows multiculturalism of the liberal brand.
You're correct. I've seen it. I've worked in schools recently, and I've seen the liberal mantra plastered all and these are like primary schools, and I've seen it, and it's quite astonishing.
And they have the minds of your children.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that the liberal state is as bad as the Nazis, but it's not far. Hitler once boasted. He said, "What you think doesn't matter because we have your children." And he was applauded for it. But he was speaking the truth because he understood that now that the Nazis controlled the state education, that within a generation or two, anyone who was opposed to the Nazis were irrelevant.
Yeah, because the children have been indoctrinated with...
Exactly, and the liberals think the same. They think that you do not matter because they have your children in their hands.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I know that they don't really want to have their children taught in state school. If I had children myself, I would definitely question whether I wanted to send them to school in a state school. I'd rather teach them myself if I could do that, because, as I said,
Easy thing to do.
I know it's not an easy thing to do, but then I'd rather have my child...
I would encourage you instead to send them to a Christian school.
Well, I would prefer to teach them myself.
Yeah.
School never really did anything for me. Never taught me much. It taught me to read and write. I mean, all the knowledge and skills I've garnered, I got after school.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not a...
I think that the only way that any project against the establishment can work is if it is rooted in a culture that predates the establishment agenda. Because you can't defend England if you separate England from its Christian past. You can't stand up for anything English if you think that being English isn't about being Christian. Because English identity has been interwoven with the Christian church for over 1,000 years now.
Look what's happening now. If you proclaim to be English and hold up the English flag, in many parts of society, you're a racist. You're a bigot.
When you hold up the English flag, whose flag are you holding up?
Well, our country. It's the Union Jack.
Hold on, it's the Union Jack.
It's a cross.
It's a cross.
St. George.
You're holding up a cross, and who was St. George?
Of course.
He was an Armenian. So we English proudly fly the cross of an Armenian. That's my point, is that being Christian and the English being Christian actually opens our horizons to the world, because what it does is it links us to a global movement called the church. The English took as their patron saint an Armenian, not an Englishman, and they did it with pride. For England and...
Country?
No.
God.
No. For England and St. George was the battle cry. That was the battle cry of the English. For England, our nation, and the Armenian saint, who is the patron of our nation. So being a Christian is about being interwoven into a global community called the church. It means that it's not about ethnicity. Being English is something that elevates us out of simple parochial boundaries, but it also solidifies an identity against the globalist agenda that seeks to diminish any culture and turn it all into a giant melting pot, because it proudly says, we as Christians have our own history, we as Christians have our own culture, we as Christians have our own identity, and we're not going to let you take it away from us.
I have a question. So, how do we go about promoting those Christian values? I mean, surely you're not thinking of enforcing them top down.
No, this would be silly. We have to deal with the reality that we're in today.
Right.
We promote them by living them first. That's what we do. Because unless you can convert yourself, how can you convert the nation around you? Unless you can live a noble life, how can you call people to nobility? Unless you can show Christian love, how can you ask people to practice it? Now, I'm not standing here, brother, saying that I'm a saint.
No.
I still sin. I still struggle with all the sins that you probably do. Yeah? But what I'm saying is that the energy of my life is orientated to something above and beyond and greater than myself. Which means that what happens to me is not as important as the cause. And if I have to sacrifice myself for the triumph of the church, so be it. And that's what I'm calling you to do. I'm calling you to be a warrior of Christ, a true soldier of the living God.
Well, it's been very interesting, Bob.
All right.
It's been a pleasure, mate.
You look after yourself.
I will.
You're going to get that Bible app?
Yeah, I'll download it. I'll
All
have
right.
a look.
You
Thank
look after yourself. God bless you and take care. And congratulations on the things that you're changing about your life.
Yeah.
They're good things to change.
It's going to be a struggle, but
Yeah.
I've been through worse, mate.
You're going to do well. Godspeed. I'll pray for you. Take care.
Was it successful conversion? Impressive. Tell me about these objective moral positions.
These objective moral
Yeah,
positions.
tell us about
whether
this.
you need
we
God.
need God for objective morals. That's what you were going to explain to me.
Yeah. So, in terms of objective morality is that which can be observed and seen apart from any ideology.
It's a little bit narrow.
It is. So, one example of that. Let's use natural law in terms of the fact that you would agree that human beings are born and do become moral agents of one kind or another.
They have innate morality.
Yeah, they have a lay morality.
They have innate morality.
Innate morality.
Moral instincts.
So they have an innate moral structure to their consciousness. Yeah. Which indicates that there is some kind of moral system to follow, but it doesn't prove it.
Well, it's self-evident.
Yeah, it is self-evident. You're right. So, now in terms of that which is what we can draw from that, we can draw certain lessons by looking at the world and seeing how it is and what it indicates about how we should live. Yeah?
Well, we can draw objective morality from ourselves.
Draw objective morality, that's you're making my argument. That's what I'm saying.
From ourselves. We don't
Yes.
have to look at the world because we know...
Are we part of the world?
We are, but we don't have to look at the world. We can just see it in ourselves.
You just see it in yourself.
Yes, because you don't want to be harmed.
You don't want to be harmed. So, thank you. You've just indicated an objective moral standard.
That was my point, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't need God for that.
However, in terms of anchoring that objective moral system so that it cannot be subverted by any ideology, political or otherwise, you have to anchor that moral structure on a claim of truth. And a claim of truth doesn't make any sense if there isn't a God.
I would say the opposite.
Do you believe that there's
God is used to undermine that morality?
Let me ask you this question. Do you believe that there is such a thing as truth?
I believe that there's an objective morality.
Do you believe that there's such a thing as truth?
Well, I'm a mathematician, so there are truths in mathematics.
You're still equivocating. Do you believe that there's such a thing as truth?
Well, it depends on what we're talking about.
Truth, something that corresponds...
If you want to say the truth of God, for example, then I'd have to say no.
No, I'm saying something that corresponds closely to reality.
Is it true that I'm here?
Yeah, it's their objectivity.
Right.
Yeah, we can't argue against skepticism. It's impossible.
No, we can't.
No, we can't. But we can say, sensibly, that it's axiomatic, but we could say there is an objective morality.
Thank you. So there is an objective morality. So who defines
reality? I'm saying objective reality.
Reality from which we
I do
can
also
draw.
agree there's an objective morality.
From which we can draw truths. So, for example, we can draw the truth that the point of sexual conduct is reproduction. Agreed?
Gene propagation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So gene propagation is the point of sexual conduct, right?
Yes.
Not pleasure.
At the reduced level, yes.
Not pleasure.
Yes, but the pleasure comes from the fact that you...
Pleasure is the reward that you get for reproducing.
It's what encourages you to
But the point of sexual conduct is not pleasure. So we can draw from this objective reality certain sexual moral truths.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of a jump there, because for most people at their conscious level, purpose of sex is for pleasure.
Because of a political ideology that has told
No.
them so.
No, because
Not because of any grounding in truth.
no, because it's intrinsic to human beings to feel pleasure when they have sex.
The license to pursue pleasure is a cultural, political agenda that
I strongly object to that.
was born in the 1960s into our modern culture. Before that,
Are you suggesting
much
that
before
cavemen didn't derive pleasure from sex?
of course they did. I'm not saying they didn't.
So it was
What I'm
always
saying-
there, didn't
no,
it? It was
no, no.
1960s.
No, you're conflating things now. What I'm saying is that we can draw from the reality that sex is about reproduction.
Scientifically, yeah.
Yes. That therefore the point of sex is not primarily pleasure, but that is a secondary accident to the incident of reproduction.
I disagree.
Okay, you disagree. However, you're arguing against what is obvious.
No, I'm not.
You're arguing against an objective
I'm
reality.
saying they're two separate things. There is reproduction and there's pleasure from
And
sex.
this, ladies and gentlemen, is how political narrative distorts our
But we've
perception of
already
reality.
agreed that cavemen had that experience before this politics.
No, what you're doing.
Do animals have pleasure?
What
when they
you
have
are
sex?
doing,
They
what you are doing is distorting the reality
No.
that is obvious to all, which is what is the point, the maximum point of sexual pleasure?
There isn't any point to it.
Yes, there is. It's called ejaculation. And what happens
That's
at
for a man.
ejaculation?
That's a very misogynistic viewpoint.
What's the point of the female orgasm?
Lubrication.
No, it isn't. Gosh, dude. Anyway, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say the obvious. The point of the female orgasm is to draw
Oh,
up.
that too. Yeah, that too.
The point of the female orgasm is to draw up the sperm.
Yeah, no, I agree. Accept that. Yeah.
Right. So the maximum point of the pleasure of the sexual act is connected directly to reproduction.
I'm not denying that these two things exist, but from our conscious selves, we seek pleasure.
No, that is what you have been formed
No,
to think
it's a fact.
by a liberal society
No, I disagree.
who in the 1960s gave itself over to a hedonistic culture.
But it's okay.
He's a Christian too.
Yeah?
It's okay. It's okay.
The pursuit of sexual pleasure as an end in of itself is contrary to natural conduct.
No, I totally disagree with that.
It is like a man who eats not to sustain himself, but simply for the enjoyment of the flavour of food.
Which they do.
And that is also contrary to what is naturally, intrinsically
Most of our
rooted
eating,
in the
eating
natural order.
is not for sustenance.
I agree, and that is why, as a moral system, you would say it is wrong to be gluttonous, and it is wrong to practice sexual
Right,
licentiousness.
but you could argue that in a secular fashion, because if you overate, you would have the experience of obesity potentially, and your body would break down.
And which
so
secular authorities are arguing that exactly?
scientists would argue that, nutritionists would argue that.
No.
They're not religious.
They are not saying that it's morally wrong. They're just saying that.
Well, what do we mean
as,
by moral? We mean right. We mean
Exactly.
We mean desirable and undesirable.
No,
That's
no,
what
no,
we
no.
could define
No, that's
as
what you're
moral.
defining it
No,
as.
no.
That's what you're defining
No,
it
I've
as.
seen a definition where it is that.
That's what your
How do we
definition
define
is.
right and wrong?
Right. What I define right and wrong is that which corresponds to that which is true.
Yeah, but you're going to define right and wrong what your God tells you.
Yes. And what are you defining right and wrong as?
There are intrinsic morals innate in us. They're right and wrong.
Intrinsic morals innate within us. I agree. My faith teaches that. It's called natural law. Do you know what natural law is?
Conscience, right? Like the inner voice of conscience.
Do you know what natural law is?
Please enlighten me.
Do you know what natural law is?
Please enlighten me.
Is that a yes or a no?
Let's say no.
Okay, right. I'm going to take it as a no.
I
But
did say no.
Swallow your pride. There's nothing wrong with admitting if you don't know something.
I know.
Yeah?
I know.
Swallow
A
your
drop in
pride.
the ocean.
There is nothing wrong with admitting if you don't know something.
Keep
Do
going.
you know what natural law is?
I don't. You go
Okay,
for it. That's
right.
easy for you to say.
So
Go.
natural law is the Christian doctrine that God, as He created the natural world, structured it in such a way that we can draw from it lessons of truth, lessons of morality.
Right, but
Yeah.
you still haven't dealt with the fact that I am saying that there is an objective morality without God.
What I am saying is
You
the
need
very...
to demonstrate that, I think.
So let us look at the very idea of objective. What underpins your moral system?
In that evolution.
Evolution.
I've evolved to be a social creature.
Okay, so you believe that evolution is the thing that you should draw a moral system from,
You
right?
don't draw from it, but it's innate in us and it comes from evolution.
Right. Do you know what social Darwinism is?
Well, it's society's Social Darwinism, I believe, is where society evolves. Is that
No.
what you're talking about? Okay, well,
Social Darwinism was a philosophical movement in the 1900s up to 1945,
right.
taking its cue from people like Nietzsche and also the theory of evolution that there were different races and that some races were better than others.
Nonsense.
Yeah, it is nonsense. But evolution, if you're going to use that as the prism, the narrative by which you decide your moral system, well, evolution is about survival of the fittest.
But you couldn't even use that against animals.
So that those that survive are then able to breed. So survival of the fittest is about who I can dominate.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that your moral system?
It's
You what?
Humanity evolution doesn't have totally everything to do with domination.
No. There are
It's just
examples of cooperation.
those that can acclimatise to
what Bob's saying
environment
is we
more
could-
suitably than other
what Bob's saying is we could
Yeah.
Those are
derive
the
from
ones
that.
that survive longer, therefore pass their procreate.
But
pass their genes on.
the theory of evolution, if we used it as a narrative, a prism by which to construct a moral narrative, would mean that we need to make all the Earth bent solely around our own survival.
Yes, but it would break the objective morality of the fact that human
And
beings
that is not
don't
what my
like
faith
being
is.
harmed.
You what?
It would break the objective morality of the fact that human beings don't like being harmed.
This objective
So when
morality,
we were dominating others, we are harming others.
this objective morality that you're indicating
Yep.
is
Which is a
exactly.
fact.
I agree with you. It is a fact. And so what it shows us is that there are objective moral truths in nature that we can draw from to understand what is morally right and morally wrong.
So where does God come in?
Right. So where does God come in? For me, God is the one, the author of all creation. Yeah. You are saying that there is no moral order. You're saying that there is no God, right? So what you really want
I'm
to
not
debate is
saying
whether
that.
God
I'm
exists.
a soft atheist. I'm not saying that.
So what it seems to be saying, what you seem to suggest is you want to argue that God doesn't exist.
No.
Right.
I have the default position. God doesn't exist until you compel me.
But there is
to believe in
such
God.
a thing as truth.
Well, it's contextual, but yeah,
Contextual to
whatever we're discussing.
contextual. It's so vague. I don't actually understand what you're
It's
communicating.
very difficult to detail, but I mean, mathematics, as I said, which is my subject,
So what's
has
to stop?
issues around
Here's
context.
why we need God to underpin objective morality.
We don't.
We do,
No, we
because now we have a disagreement between us. I say he's wrong,
No,
and
you
he
don't.
says I'm wrong.
No, you don't.
No.
You do accept
No,
that
hold
none
on.
of us want to be harmed.
Do you
That's
believe
an
in abortion?
objective morality.
Do you believe in abortion?
Do I believe it exists?
No. Do you believe that it should be practiced morally?
It's a difficult subject.
That's not an answer to the
I
question.
cannot give you that
Are
answer.
you
There is-
undecided?
No,
Are you
it's a
undecided?
contextual problem.
Are you undecided on it?
No, I'm not undecided. It's
So,
a contextual problem.
do you agree with it or disagree with the practice of abortion?
I cannot give you a definite answer on that
Why are you vague?
because I cannot give you. It's
Have
a
you come
complicated.
to a moral conclusion on the question of abortion?
No,
You haven't.
no.
So it's still up in the
Because
air
it's
for you.
contextual.
Still up in. Fair enough. That's fine if you haven't come to a moral conclusion. But what we have is two truth claims, and I believe two moral systems. You have indicated that you want to base your moral system on evolution. I believe it should be based on revelation. We disagree. This is why you need God, because God allows you to have a common narrative. What we don't have at this moment is if we have no objective truth to measure moral systems by, all we have is a competition. A competition in which the one who is stronger wins.
But Bob, there's a problem there.
Go on.
You're talking about your God.
Yes.
What happens when we deal with the 300 gods and they've all got their different moral positions?
I know.
How do we deal with that?
Absolutely. So you deal with it by measuring truth by that which corresponds closest to reality.
That's mine.
So you say that's yours. You say you say that you simply should live a life in which you don't hurt others, right?
I think it's the basis of objective morality.
So it's Buddha's.
And by harm, for example, if we steal from someone, that harms that person.
It's essentially a sort of approximation to Buddha's moral system.
Can I ask a quick question, clarification? By harm, do you mean cause pain?
Yes, but it could be mental pain, anguish.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in
So
terms
pleasure
of
and pain, utilitarianism.
yeah. So in
And
terms.
seeking pleasure would be the extra thing there, right? From utilitarian.
But who
happiness
defines what is pleasure? Because your pleasure may be another person's pain.
Right, but then I can't violate that. I can't harm that person, so
that means that you should probably
I mean,
not...
utilitarianism talks about seeking pleasure, it doesn't talk about
you should
actually...
probably... So if you were to actually practice this principle,
Right.
yeah, there'd be very little that you could actually do.
Well, you could raise
Because
psychopathy, for example.
everything that we do causes someone pain. Your purchase of that bag, your purchase of that watch, your purchase of those trainers will be connected to a social system that is built intrinsically on injustice.
Yes.
So seeking not to do harm is insufficient. Christ gives you a better moral example. He says to love, because love is proactive. It isn't simply seeking to avoid harming others, it is actually to seek what is best for them.
Can I interrupt?
No, let me just deal with this point. So here we have two moral systems being proposed. One by the atheist, who says avoid evil, avoid hurting other people.
No, I'm not saying
One
that. I'm saying
no,
that
that
is
what you
intrinsic.
said.
That's
That is what you
intrinsic to
said.
us.
What I have said is that Christ gives a better moral example. Love your neighbour as you love yourself. So that means the good that you want for yourself, you should pursue for those around you. So one is simply about avoiding hurting others, and the other is about pursuing what is best for other people. Now, which of these two moral systems will produce the most good?
You asking me that question?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
That's correct.
I'm confident that it's Christ's.
I'm not confident either way.
Because no charity was ever set up because they simply were trying to avoid
The
hurting
problem
people.
with religion is that it can be subverted.
No,
and we
hold on.
see that constantly. So I'm undecided on that.
No, I'm not.
Linguistically, you should start with a sentence which the problem is.
Oh yeah, we had that earlier.
Yeah. So the point that I'm making to you, no charity has ever been set up because someone said, I want to avoid hurting people, so I'll set up a charity. No, charities get set up because people think, shit, there are some homeless people on the street and no one is looking after them, so I will do something about it.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be a Christian thing. You can extrapolate the morals and the ethics
Well, they're being harmed.
from a
it seems...
doctrine and
Yes.
use that. And I don't have to be a Christian
And that
to do
is the liberal project for the last 300 years,
No, I
and it
don't buy
has
that.
failed.
But I can do that on an individual level.
That is entirely what the Enlightenment project is. The
I'm talking
Enlightenment.
about myself.
I know you are.
I can extrapolate the
I
morals
know
and
you are.
ethics.
And all
saying
I
we
can
are
live my
duped.
life in the same
And
way
all
that you can.
are doing is repeating a narrative that our society has bestowed to you
No,
from the
I'm an
Enlightenment.
individual and I'm
No,
living
then-
my life on the moral compass that I set myself.
So you need to. That is exactly what society has taught
So
you to
unless
do.
I follow your book, I'm not going to be as moral as you.
I am saying
but
to
Bob,
you.
That's what you're
people-
saying.
That is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Early man
That is
formed,
exactly what I'm
formed
saying.
society. Early man
Because
formed
hold on,
society.
let me
Without
address
God.
this. Let me address this brother's point. Because the fact is, what you are echoing is exactly what our society has been trying to do for 300 years, to extract the moral system of Christianity from the Christian doctrines that underpinned it. And what has that resulted in? It has resulted in the very undermining of a concept of truth upon which the basis of the rule of law is established. And the reason why we see the rule of law being undermined in our country is because our country has separated the concept of right and wrong from the concept of truth, which means that truth is simply what you make it. Well, that works for you as an individual, but what happens when the establishment decide the truth is what they make it?
But you're not,
And
you're
decide
not
that
arguing for
Tommy
moral relativism,
Robinson
are you?
is an
You're saying
extreme
there's
right-wing
objective morality,
fanatic.
right?
I'm
Because
saying I follow my
they
own
are
moral
creating
compass
their
based on
own
my
truth
No, but there
and
is an
deciding
objective
their
morality.
own moral system. And that's what you're doing. You are echoing as an individual, and I agree it's probably nothing like as harmful as what the liberal establishment are doing. But the liberal establishment are doing it as a collective with power, and you're doing
I'm
it
not
as an
talking
individual.
about them.
But I
I'm
am.
not- well, you are, but I'm not.
still doesn't
Because you are
explain.
echoing what they are
No,
doing.
You think I am.
That is what you're
That's
doing.
your perception. That's your paradigm.
Does our
that's
state-
that's the prism through which you're looking at it.
Are you an atheist or an
no,
agnostic?
I'm neither.
Neither. What do you
I'm not a
believe?
label.
You're not a label.
I'm a free thinker. How about
Okay,
that?
a free
Sorry
thinker.
if that doesn't categorise
No.
me in a way that you find
No,
it
it,
easy
it
to
does
atheist.
perfectly.
challenge.
It does
For the
perfectly
camera,
because
he's an
it's just
atheist.
that's exactly what the Enlightenment is all about: free thinking.
Oh,
Read
yeah.
Kant.
Yeah.
Read Kant.
So-
I'm not making it up.
So it's
Kant
it's
is the
immoral,
father.
It's immoral to be a free thinker.
Kant is the father of the Enlightenment. He was the one who coined the phrase "be a free thinker." And he used the story of Abraham to demonstrate that point. So yes, you
so because
are...
one person said it means that he has the
What
total
I'm saying is,
monopoly on
you're using terms and you're ignorant of where they've come from. You're using an ideology and you're ignorant of where it has come from. What you are...
Truth is not an ideology. Morality is not an ideology.
I agree, truth is not an ideology.
But you're making it sound like because someone said it before and philosophized about it, therefore I've echoed it or I've said it.
That is exactly what you've done.
But it's ridiculous.
So what? That
It's
is exactly
ridiculous.
what you've done. That is exactly
So
what
you
you've done.
can't. So you can't have someone just be a moral person because it must have come from a philosopher that once said it, and therefore I'm echoing it. What
A moral
ridiculous thing to
journey.
say.
A moral journey is much like any other journey. You need a map and a compass. And without a map and a compass, all you're doing is guessing. And that's
Can
what
we
you're
get
doing.
back to the multiple
You're
gods?
just guessing.
I want to hear about the multiple gods.
You're just guessing. But I want to deal with this point because he really doesn't understand how his personal, individual attitude is exactly what the state is doing. Because the state practices state agnosticism. It says amongst all religions, amongst all claims to truth, we don't know what's true. So be yourself, make up your own truth, decide your own moral system, just don't hurt anyone. But the state, when it practices that collectively, decides to invent the truth. And so it labels all of these people wrongly.
But the state is hurting people. Bob.
I
and
agree.
We can agree on
it
that.
It is.
So don't think that people on this side are not acknowledging that truth, because we are.
Because this moral system that you're seeking to follow is not rooted in reality.
If you were to leave Christianity
I am not seeking to
tomorrow,
follow it. It's a truth.
Would you become an immoral person?
I would become a less moral person.
Right. So less moral.
Yes.
So why not totally immoral?
Do you know what sin is?
No, hang on.
I'm going to address your point.
No, let's not do question. Let's do question answer.
All right. Question, answer, then question.
So, did that not make sense? That question.
So ask your question again. So I'll answer.
Okay. So if you were to give up Christianity tomorrow, would you become an immoral person?
I would become a less moral person.
Well, why not totally immoral?
Right.
Because according to your logic,
sorry,
you can only be a moral
have asked
person
a question.
if you.
No,
One
Bob
if
actually did
you
agree with
follow
objective
your book.
morality.
You have asked one question. I have answered it. Now I will ask you one question.
That didn't answer it.
I did answer it. You said to me, if I became a Christian, would I become a immoral person? I answered the question by saying I would become a less moral person. So I have answered your question. Now it is your turn.
We'll have to come back on that.
Now, you can do.
But do you think
now
less
it is
objectively
your
moral
turn.
or relatively
Now
moral?
it is your turn to answer a question.
No, but Bob, are you saying you're less?
Now it is your turn to answer a question. Now it is your turn to answer a question.
Here we go. One word
When
answer coming up.
when you free think your moral system, what is the touchstone that you base your moral theory on? What is that thing that decides what's right and what is wrong?
What do you mean a touchstone?
So let me clarify. You have said, I am a free thinker. I think for myself, I make up my own moral system.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're deciding this is right and this is wrong, what criteria are you using?
I can feel it. I can observe it.
So emotionalism.
No, that's another question. Not my turn.
Yeah. Okay. Your turn.
So
Objective morality is the answer.
We can do
We
this
can do
like
this.
silly, childish, like one-word answers.
Well,
things,
we're
if
not
you
having
like.
to shout, which is an improvement on the Islamic
But
dawah
you can
team.
see, you created this frame of one-word answers, and it's not really going to lead to anything.
Right, your
productive,
question.
I can agree
Your
with that,
question.
So
Bob.
are we
I
going to
can
do
agree
these
with
one-word
that.
answers? Is
Your
that how
question.
we're going to do it? Okay.
Your question.
Okay, fine. So why is it then, if you were to give up Christianity tomorrow, would you only become a less moral person and not a totally immoral person if, by your own logic, that you can only find your moral compass if you follow this book?
Yeah, and the answer to that is
Bob didn't actually
the
say
answer
that.
to that is I didn't, but the answer to that is a really simple
fairness.
one. The fact of the matter is that if I was to leave Christianity tomorrow, a lot of my moral structure, a lot of my moral narrative would still be influenced by my Christian faith. In the same way that for most of the history of the UK, even though since the Enlightenment it has been moving steadily away from its Christian past, its moral framework has still been informed by its Christian past. It's like if I gave this brother a £20 note and then he gave you the £20 note, where did the £20 note originally come from? It came from me. So, in our society, that's what we see. We see the fact that even though people like yourself are saying I'm a free thinker, I'm not a Christian, still having lots of morals that accord with the Christian faith because our culture has been Christian for over 1,000 years, and that juggernaut of history doesn't just disappear overnight. But as our society has moved increasingly away from its Christian faith, it has brought in more and more laws that are contrary to the Christian faith, such as the liberalisation of divorce laws that are the root of destroying families.
But from an atheist perspective, it's actually bringing in laws.
Destroying families amongst white working communities.
But it's doing that regardless of
the
Christianity.
abortion laws, which are allowing white working communities to kill their own children and to prevent them from having the next generation. The litigiousness in terms of the
He's rambling now.
No, I'm giving examples.
Can you give us an example of the immorality that...
Let me finish.
You're Christian-splaining.
I'd like a question after
Let me
this.
finish.
Please, if I may.
So these laws, like
think it's relevant.
the abolition of the Sabbath law, which has meant that increasingly workers in the UK are being abused by their employers who force them to work far above and beyond any kind of norm, and does not allow for the bonding of society by giving people a common day off.
You're stretching norm there into Christian doctrine.
So different people are having different days off, so they can't see their friends and they can't see their family because their wife's got one day off and they've got another day off.
But this is all objective morality, Bob.
It's harmful to society.
You don't
It's harmful
need religion
to society.
for that.
So, in answer to your question, the reason why I wouldn't become a completely morally immoral person is because if I abandon my faith, a lot of my moral narrative would still be Christian.
Let me ask you a question.
Now let me ask you a question.
No, hold on. I've got another question.
I'm doing one question.
I want to know what you would do after Christianity that would be immoral. Because you said you would be less immoral, so you're doing something that's immoral. What is it? What are you going to do that's immoral?
I'm going to ask him a question first, and then I'll address your question, and then I'd like him to respond to my question.
Please.
So you'll have time to think about it. All right? You said that your moral system was based upon how you felt about something.
Being a human being,
so it's about your feeling. It's about your feeling.
A consciousness, sure.
Has your feelings ever led you to think that something... if your moral feelings say something is right, does that mean that it's right for society or just right for you?
Okay.
That's the question. So you asked me the question, what would I do?
What you actually said was that if you stopped being a Christian...
I'd become a less moral person.
Implying that you would take actions that were immoral.
Yes.
What are those actions?
So I'm not going to give a list because obviously I don't know.
Just give me one.
I'm just going to give you one.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm going to give you. So for me, as a Christian, to deny truth is immoral. To deny what is real is immoral. And our reality is that God exists. To deny that reality is an immoral act.
Okay, but you can't give me that example.
Why can't I?
Because
Are you going to define now what examples I can give?
Because the premise of my question was you've already left Christianity.
Yes, I have.
In other words, you've already denied God.
Yes.
So now we need another example.
And that would be an immoral act.
No, but we said having left the church, so you need to give me another immoral act, not that one. Because we already presupposed in the question that you've already left. In other words, you've already denied God. So you need to give me another immoral act.
Okay, so another one that I might do.
You're struggling.
No, not really.
You are, Bob.
No, not really. I'm just
You're struggling.
Do
you know why? Because you've got an innate morality.
No, you're jumping the gun. So another example of something that might be immoral. Because God is the anchor of truth and that map and compass by which we navigate moral situations. If I deny God's existence, which I've already done, I would then, I imagine, because this is an imaginary scenario, attach myself to an immoral cause like nationalism or communism or fascism.
But would you?
I might do.
No, but that's not what you said you would. You're giving me a silly example.
It seems that the brother is unhappy with any example that I give him.
No, you gave me a completely
So he's following the true Mancunian argument, which is that I won't accept any answer because...
He didn't say, did he? What ideology?
I've given you two examples, and I gave you an example of which ideologies.
I want to see you violate an objective morality.
You simply were not listening.
No, I was listening.
You simply were not listening.
Absolutely not.
Because if I follow nationalism, the objective
you said
morality...
You might. You didn't say you would.
We're talking a hypothetical
But I asked
situation.
you what you would do, not what you might do.
So, unfortunately,
What would you
the
do
brother
that's
is
immoral?
simply playing semantics.
No, but you're stuck. You can't think of an objective morality that you would break.
Everything,
Why? Because you have an objective morality.
Everything that with this argument is based upon a hypothetical situation.
No, it's based on
so
objective
it is right
morality.
to speak might, but I'm not going to argue semantics with you.
It's not semantics.
I'm not going to argue semantics with
It's
you.
truth. You like truth, it's truth.
Let me ask you this question. Okay, so you said that you were not this, and then I want him to answer the question I asked him. So you'll come back to this.
Okay.
So the question I ask you,
Right.
as using your moral system, do you agree with
It's not
divorce?
my moral system, Bob.
Do you agree with divorce? That's the question for you. Now, you answer my question.
Okay, well.
Do you remember my question?
Yeah, it wasn't a yes or no question.
It wasn't
I
a
know
yes
the
or no.
question. I know the question you asked, and my answer to that is, I'm aware of the individual repercussions of my own actions on an individual level, but I'm also simultaneously aware of the effects that I have on a more of a pluralistic level as well. So I can hold those two intentions simultaneously. That's my answer to you. My question now.
Hold on.
To you. No, one question.
Yeah, okay.
You created that
right.
rule.
Yeah, I did.
So
I can work with the rules, and none of us here are the Dawa. Please,
Bob's
no
good.
one's screaming,
Bob,
no one's
I'm
shouting
only-
over
I'm
one
only-
another.
Bob,
I'm
we
in
totally
your frame
agree.
right now,
Go on.
brother. I'm in
Go
your
on.
frame.
Go on.
I'm in your
We
frame.
appreciate it, Bob. Seriously.
Actually, let me you carry on because I want to get the wording of this correct so we make
Shall I
sense.
answer the question?
The question
Because you know
I
I'm
asked
going to give you the same answer I gave you before, right? It's
Right.
contextual.
So it's contextual.
It has to be.
Right. So by contextualism, again,
Look, I can tell you exactly why it's
no,
contextual.
I'm not interested now.
Okay.
Like,
I thought you might not be.
By contextualization, the thing is, with the problem with a contextual ethic is it can be used to justify anything.
So can religion.
Because by a contextual ethic, you will say that anything can be justified given the circumstances.
You're arguing that divorce
So in
is a
certain
true false argument.
circumstances, genocide of the kind practiced by the Nazis can be justified by
No.
a moral society.
No.
So there are some things that are always
I told you
wrong.
there's an objective truth about harming individuals. How can you commit genocide and say that that's not harming individuals? That's ridiculous.
You what?
You're saying that genocide can be justified by something I'm saying.
Oh, so your
It's
moral
ludicrous.
maxim is still about not committing harm. But the
We
point
can derive much from that.
the reason why I've dismissed this moral argument
No,
is
'cause you
because
wanna believe
no
that you need
charity,
God.
no charity has ever been set up because someone decided they wanted to avoid hurting other people.
No.
Charities.
They set up charities to avoid other people being harmed.
Charities are set up because you love someone enough and you seek to do them good. So it's Christ's teaching that you love your neighbour as yourself that leads to the establishment of charities. And it is that moral system of seeking the good for your neighbour that you want for yourself that pushes society forward in a better direction.
Does anybody here believe that charity is God is required for charity?
God
Please.
is required to
Are
charity.
you saying that it's a nonsense
Yeah.
argument?
Yes.
Nonsense.
Yes. Yes.
That's
I believe that.
that leads well on to the
I
point.
believe that.
I've phrased
I
the
believe
question.
that. Ubi caritas et amor Deo sibi est. Where there is love, there is God. Any expression of love is an expression of God.
So that's what it's innate to you. So that's the thing. Your
It's not innate.
innate moral compass
It is
comes
innate.
from God. Yours comes from being a human being. That's
No,
what-
his moral compass is not to harm other people.
Right.
Your moral compass is my feelings.
No, not just my feelings.
Yes, it is. That's
No,
what you
it's
said
not.
in your answer.
No, because
People can decide on camera. Anyway,
Okay,
make your
so
own. Make your
the-
question.
The,
Your
the
question.
point is, you've already stated that, like, if you were to give up Christianity tomorrow, you still have a residual set of ethics and morals.
He actually never gave us
follow
any
through to the next
example
day,
of his immorality.
I gave you two. You
even
just
though
didn't
you-
accept them.
He didn't.
I gave you two.
Even though you
Definitely
removed
not.
yourself
You
from
weren't
the
listening.
religion, you said that you
I
would
was
still
listening.
carry
Sorry,
with
he's
you.
heckling.
Sorry, I apologise.
Go on, start again.
I started it. Go on.
You said earlier,
Following
said
the Dawa
if you
team.
were to give up
Terrible.
Christianity
Yeah.
the next day, you would still carry with you some of the moral, I think structure was the word that you used,
Yes.
from the
Like
day
our
before.
culture has, yeah.
Sure. And that was the point that I was trying to make is I don't have to be a Christian. I can extrapolate the ethics and morals that you have in your book that I also have through my own life experience,
Yeah.
and that doesn't belong to your book. That doesn't monopolize. You don't monopolize the word truth. You don't monopolize the word love. These are things that are in the substrate of humanity, and if I choose to tune into that, that's what I want to do on a human level. And that doesn't mean that you have to you have the final say in your book that says that comes from
Okay,
that.
I can see you want to come in on something.
Yeah, I just try and make the debate progress a little. I think you're saying that you derive your moral beliefs from an inner sense of right and wrong. Is that correct?
Not just
like
in a sense. Not just in a sense. Like the animal. Like if an animal had a bird in the nest, you wouldn't just eat the bird. It nurtures the young.
Right.
Okay. Now they didn't have a Bible. They didn't have a Bible. They didn't have any doctrines.
I agree.
That's innate within nature to want to
let him
love
make his
and
point.
nurture.
Let him make his
I
point.
agree. I don't think you need a Bible to know basic moral truths.
Absolutely.
But
That's
I think
the point.
the question is, how do we know, right, that this sort of set of intuitions is reliable? Now, if you're a theist, like Bob here, you believe that you were made by God. And as such, this inner sense of right and wrong, and I think it's in Romans chapter 2, was designed by God. So you can trust it. You have grounds to trust your inner sense of right and wrong. From your perspective, though, I assume...
Hang on, let him finish his point.
From your perspective, I assume atheist, or you were saying free thinker, you believe that your inner sense of right and wrong is the product of a naturalistic, as it were, blind process. So I guess...
Not blind.
No, it's not blind. It's eyes wide open.
Right. But
No, the process
This is
not blind.
blind. This is eyes wide open.
No, that is not eyes wide
because
open.
you're doing everything from a 300-page book.
Right.
I'm using
It's
light.
definitely more than 300 pages in here.
I'm
Right.
in
Six
high
books. I'm saying
definition right
300
here.
What I'm saying
He's
is,
in 1D.
what I'm saying is, I think he has better reason to trust his moral intuitions than you do, because he
No,
believes his
he
moral
has
intuitions.
blind faith.
No,
believes
you
that
have
That's
blind
called
faith.
blind faith.
That is the
No,
definition of
believes
blind
No,
faith.
this simple enlightenment rhetoric that the Christian faith is blind faith is simply a catchphrase.
You're even holding it in your hand.
Yes, I am. It is simply a catchphrase
Bob,
of
You're holding it in your
enlightenment
hand.
thinkers. Allow me to talk now. Right? It is simply a catchphrase of enlightenment thinkers. Because let us consider, if there is no God, then what we're really saying is that the moral framework that these two are advocating
We're different.
is
We
the
have different frameworks
product
here.
is the product of
trying to
a
collect
chaotic,
And I'm not advocating.
random chance. And if it is the product of a chaotic, random chance,
There's no random.
then we can choose our own morality.
No random.
Because there is no absolute truth
There's no random.
by which we can measure what is right and wrong. So they are arguing
Nothing random,
that in
Bob.
an atheistic universe,
We're not a monolith.
they
by the way.
have
We're
they
individuals.
have
We have
a
different
moral
opinions, yeah.
system,
We're different people, by the
a
way.
moral system that is the product of a
we're-
chaotic evolutionary
We're the same.
process,
We're the same. We're Siamese
which,
twins. Exactly
as
the
human
same.
beings, we have moved out of and looked down upon, and therefore can reinvent. Now, that is the problem with an atheistic moral system.
Except it isn't,
and it
because
is
you
the
made some
very
assumptions
reason.
which are incorrect.
It is the very reason why we should reject it. Because if we do follow
He's
that logic,
proselytizing again.
then what we do is we open the door to the ideologies that we have seen in the 20th century, like communism, Nazism, fascism.
But we can do that without your God.
That asserted that humanity was its own God, and then defined humanity.
Man is a measure of all things.
Now, however, if we base our faith upon what God has revealed on Revelation, the justifications of which are separate to this argument, they're a separate line of argument, then what we have is an objective measurement of right and wrong that is not simply about our emotional intuition or simply from a
But we agree it's an objective position, but
reductionist.
how are you going to handle the fact that there are many of those books and they say different things?
When you say many of these books,
Well, there's a Quran. How are you going to handle that?
I mean,
So I
that's
will-
why we come every Sunday, right? To argue.
Yeah.
To
So let me
decide
let me
whether-
let me
It's a
address
friendly,
that point.
I like Bob. It's a friendly debate.
And I'm not upset.
I watch your videos. I think
and
it's
I'm not
great.
upset
I
with
know,
you.
I'm enjoying it.
You know,
I'm enjoying it.
I mean, you are straw manning quite a lot, but it's
Oh,
fine.
I would say that you're straw manning, but you know that is the nature of Speaker's Corner. So, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is how Speaker's Corner was before the Islamist thugs came to try and take it over. This is how
Things are getting
Speaker's
better,
Corner
though.
used to be. But then the Islamist thugs came and they tried to establish.
We'll be
Shamsi the
shaking
First
hands
tried to
afterwards.
establish his little caliphate here with his gang, and he tried to intimidate people.
Speaker's Corner.
You know. Now, but let me deal with this
Please,
question. What do we
please.
do about all these other religions?
All these
Because
other
it is a
books.
question.
Because they're all going to say their book is
Okay, yes,
objective truth.
absolutely. Truth, ladies and gentlemen, is that which corresponds closest to reality. Okay? Truth is that which corresponds closest to reality. Now, we don't receive truth without it being interpreted to us. We interpret the truth around us through a narrative. We think in narratives. So the narrative,
I strongly disagree with
the
that.
Five
narrative,
senses.
the narrative, no, that's part of it. But the narrative by which you interpret the world around you decides for you how much of the truth you're able to access. So, in terms of what I believe is the truth, I believe Christ is the truth. He is the embodiment of truth. He is the grounding of reality for me.
Sure.
So, in terms of those other teachings, like let's look at Buddhism, which says that the way to get into the next incarnation, a higher reincarnation from this one, is to avoid the wheel of suffering. And what that results in is that Buddha basically went and sat under a tree for 20 odd years and didn't really get involved in the world around him. Muhammad followed and taught a religion that could be summarized as having an ideology that is based upon submission. Blind submission to a set of rules that, amongst other things, institute slavery, adultery, rape, and paedophilia.
But that's not too dissimilar to your book.
Now,
apart from the rape and the paedophilia.
what does my faith teach? What does Christ teach me to do? He teaches me to love my enemies, to love my neighbor, to love myself, to love my God, to love my community. Tell me, do you have any problem with that?
Absolutely not.
Do you have any problem with that?
But we don't need Christ for that.
But we don't. But I'm
So
like that
who was-
already.
but who
So how
was
is
it?
it I'm like that already without
Right.
your book then?
But you're not. That's the point. You're not, because it's
You're
because
trying to
we've
make
no.
out that you're
It's
more
because no. It's because we've had 1,000 years of this teaching in our culture that you understand that love is the highest maxim. That's
comes
why you need Jesus.
No, that comes back to the argument you're saying 3,000 years ago they were immoral.
Look at our society
Which
today.
they were not.
Look at our society today. Our society has increasingly moved away from the teachings of Christ. Increasingly moved away from the teachings of Christ. And what has that resulted
I
in?
thought Christianity was growing.
It's in this country, no. It
not
has
in this
resulted. It has resulted in family breakdown, in the license to abort your children. It has resulted in a abuse of workers. It has resulted in an increase in injustice.
Bob, I don't believe in abortion. I think it's murder, right?
I agree.
Now I'm not a Christian. How is that possible? How is that possible that I've got
And
that
where do
belief?
you think
No,
you
how
got
is
that moral
possible?
framework from?
No, how is that possible?
Where do you think they got the moral
No,
framework?
I asked the question.
Okay, you inherited it from the Christian
can't actually
culture
call it
of our
murder,
age.
guys. You
Oh,
can't
think-
call
you
it
think
murder
I've
because
tra-
it's
I've
not
tapped
actually
into-
illegal.
What about the
You can't
secular,
avoid it.
What about the secular understanding it's okay, the pro-choice argument? Why have I not tapped into that? Why have I chosen the pro-life
Yep.
answer
Yeah.
rather than the pro-choice?
Right.
And I'm not a Christian. How
Brother,
have I done that then? How have I done that?
To try and bring home to you just how much Christianity has influenced everything that we are as English people. We can't even communicate to one another without acknowledging the influence of the church, because the grammatical structures that we use to speak English were formed by two books, the Book of Common Prayer and the Bible. They normalized the English language.
Bit of a stretch.
It is not a stretch, it's history. Learn your history. Because, and this is the point, this is the dupe that the establishment have played on the English people, is that we want to distance ourselves from our own culture and from our own history and from our own identity. So that when someone praises two of the greatest
Bob-
literary works in the English
Bob, you are
language...
despising the view over this side, but this gentleman's actually agreed with you. Answer
No.
his question. He has. He said he doesn't
No.
agree with
Allow me-
abortion.
I don't agree with abortion. How is that possible,
How is that
if I'm
possible
not Christian?
if he's been liberalised? as you
Because
would
I've been liberalised like
you
you
have
said
been
I have.
influenced by the Christian culture, which is your inheritance as an Englishman born in this country.
10 minutes ago you said I've been liberalised.
You have in many ways.
So why is it that I've chosen in this particular topic to believe in the Christian
Because
way?
influencing a worldview is not a total sum game.
Right.
It isn't a
Exactly.
case that. It isn't a
Right.
case that.
Yeah.
It isn't a case.
You can pick and choose.
Yes, you do.
Right. That's my
Right.
initial
And
argument.
I know it is, but the point is, brother, when we do that, when we pick and choose our own moral system,
Yes.
what we are saying is that we are the moral arbiter. And if we are saying that we are the moral arbiter, that means that we can make the moral choice to do wrong.
I'm not saying that though. He may be saying that, but I'm not saying
And that's why
I'm saying
you
there is
need
objective
Jesus
morality.
to
I'm not the
ground
arbiter.
your reality, because you have made yourself the moral arbiter. And I am
Have you?
not suggesting.
But it's okay if
One
I
second.
don't believe in abortion.
One second. you have made yourself the moral arbiter.
Yeah, sure.
And I am not saying that that means that you have suddenly decided that you're going to stop murdering people and robbing. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that now that you have decided that you're the highest moral authority, in theory, potentially, tomorrow, you could decide that what is morally bad is something that is morally good to you.
No.
And that's why it's a bad moral system.
So could a Christian.
So could a Christian. So
That's
exactly what I was
baptism.
going to say.
You're
No,
your
no,
own-
Bob's
you're your
right
own
about that.
agent.
Can I
have a
You're your
time
own
check?
agent As a person.
But
You've got
it's,
free will.
It's 3 o'clock,
Do that
nearly.
as well.
Right.
Nearly done.
I've got to go.
It's getting hot.
I've got to go. It's 4 minutes. I've got to go
Good
at 3
chat.
o'clock.
Good chat.
I just want to deal with this brother's point. He said, so can a Christian. Of course, a Christian can go against the teaching of their faith and make themselves the highest moral arbiter and then go on to do and decide and do something wrong. In fact, every Christian still does things
you are
that
more
are wrong.
relativist. I think we
We're
can
not
argue
here
you're not
saying
one. I think
that
he's
we
taking
are
that.
He's straw manning me a
above
bit there.
everyone
Well,
else, that
it's
we're
the
morally
language you're using, I
superior
think,
to everyone
about your
else and
personal
never do
feelings.
anything wrong.
I don't think
What
that.
we're saying
You
is
said he asked
that
what
we
your morality was, and you said
acknowledge
it's come from within, it's about
the
yourself,
reality
something along those lines.
that
Yeah,
truth
then
has to
elaborate.
be
That's
grounded
from
in that
humanity,
reality.
just from
Yeah,
my
exactly.
consciousness.
I
And
think
the
it's more
truth,
an awareness,
therefore,
human
has to be
awareness.
the basis that we decide
exactly.
what
But
is
he's
morally right
treating
and morally
you as if you're a
wrong,
moral
and we
relative,
seek
which is what
to
he's trying to do.
cultivate
It's bullshit.
that moral system, that moral life into ourselves. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that and that's the difference between us, because
No, it's not. That's fantastic you do that. But so does everyone else. And so do these people, because they have
I
their
disagree.
Own, they
That
have
is
their
not
own,
what I heard
they
from this
have
guy.
their own moralities.
I don't
They
have
their
my own
Thank you.
morality.
They have their own
Please,
moralities.
I have.
Fine.
I
You
do
call
not
it
have
blind-
my
you
own
call it blind
morality.
Following, that's fine. Another thing that Christianity teaches acceptance and
I'm not
tolerance.
choosing my morality.
Who says that we teach acceptance and tolerance?
Is that not part of Christianity?
No, that's a liberal hoodwink. You see,
Okay,
the point
fine.
point about liberal society is that
Bob's going
it
where he
tries
wins.
to tell
He's
you
going where he wins.
what Christianity is. Liberal society and the liberal media try to tell the Christians what our faith is because they want the Christians to conform to the establishment's agenda. But the reality is that we Christians do not take our knowledge of the truth from what the liberal media says is Christianity.
Excuse my naivety.
We take
do you
it.
agree with acceptance
We
and
take it.
tolerance as
We
a
take
person,
it. We
as a
take
human
it.
being?
We take it from the
Paul
apostles
has already
and the
agreed with
prophets'
objective truth.
teaching,
About
which
morality.
means that we don't tolerate everything. We don't accept everything, and we are able to say when society has gone wrong, and it has gone wrong, and the people that are suffering the most from it are the white working
We
class.
agree it's gone
my
wrong,
own
Bob.
community.
We agree it's gone wrong. We're saying that God is not the answer.
And I would
Well,
say,
his book is not the answer.
anyway, guys, I'm going to have to go.
It can be his
Right,
answer.
look,
It was a pleasure
No,
speaking
I mean
to you.
globally,
Pleasure
generally.
speaking to
appreciate
you.
your-
Bob,
Pleasure
absolute
speaking
pleasure,
to
sir.
you.
Really
Yeah,
good.
you
Thank
look
very
after
much.
yourselves, guys.
Yeah, we'll talk again.
All the best in what you're fighting for.
Yeah, thank you.
Brother, you've been listening very intently. Let me ask you this question: have you got a smartphone? Download the Bible app. Download the Bible app. Have a read of it. That's right. I'm proselytizing.
How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I've got to go, brother.
No problem. But,
I've got to go.
Are you still taking the phobia? Because I want to bring you on the gin and tonic show.
I am technophobic. If you want to do the gin and tonic show with me,
Yeah.
we need to do it in person.
Can't do that. We do it online with Google Hangouts. So
I
you're
am
not able to get on there.
I'm not in the. Well, then in that case, I need some kind of studio. I need some
I
kind
know
of
you just you can't do it at home or whatever.
No, I'm not. I haven't got the home environment where I could get it. May I walk with you?
That's your question.
Yes. Anyway, if you want me to get involved,
Yeah, I was asking.
in person
Can
or
you, so your biggest are you here because the biggest problem with the environment?
Yes, from 1 to 3. 1 to 3. 1 to 3.
Come take over everything from your belly.
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to
Well, the fact that he's been locked up.
Listen. COE. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to
Yeah, by law, he's messed up. But if it was anybody else, they probably would have. No, but the thing is, if it was anybody else, he would have got a slap on the wrist or maybe a fine or something. I don't think they would have put him away for 13 months. Yeah, but I think the people that are doing grooming should be exposed. That's my opinion. Oh, sorry. Let's quickly get it. Oh, you're ready. Oh, it's all going in. All right. So I'm just going to address.